You want answers!
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Got hit by something down the hallway, if we're going to take him truthfully.
Yeah.
And then, so anyway, so Shuck says, oh God, man. So JP, the detective says, it's an unfair question on my part. Shuck says, so if there was ... Detective says, you're absolutely right. Shuck says, it could have gotten mixed. Detective says, sure. Shuck says, it could have gotten mixed. Detective says, that's totally understandable.
Oh, my gosh.
So what? Stories got mixed? Right?
Yes.
JP, the detective says, so the first volley of fire, so you're taking cover and you feel something hit your back. Those are rapid automatic gunshots coming down. Shuck says, yes. Detective says, and at some point that stops. Well, of course at some point it stops. Shuck says, yes.
My God.
Great question.
This is brutal.
I know. Detective says, and then you hear more gunshots again, but they're not coming down the hallway. Shuck says, I could not tell. Oh, man. He's trying to quit. Detective.
Yeah.
Shuck says, by that time, I had run farther towards the center core. I was running away from the fire, and I took cover again, and shots started again. Detective says, and I may have understood when you, or I may have missed it, when you were originally describing that. When the gunshots stopped, you started running. Did you say something about you were under the impression, or my words, not yours, that such and such was following you, which was Jesus? Shuck says, yes, I believe so, because after the second time, he was nearly caught up with me. And I was very confusing. Oh, and it was very confusing because the security guard that was walking into the hallway, after the second time I took cover, and I yelled at him to get back. So that's not how the other statements work. So JP, the detective says, okay.
That's not how he actually stated it at the very beginning of this whole thing.
So I went a little bit further to the next set of doors. That's exactly what the video shows.
Okay.
Was on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just kind of listening to what was going on down the hallway. And Blank, it's all blacked out, was still down somewhere down there. Well, that's weird. I didn't know anybody was still down there when they were there.
No, nobody should be.
Well, according to the sworn statements, nobody was.
No.
Okay, so
this is the first guy that said there was.
Yeah. So he's like, and Blank was still down somewhere down there. And he was ducked into one of the little cutouts, I'm assuming.
It has to be Campos, but it couldn't be because...
I don't know. He's already in the hallway.
Right. He's in the center.
Ran towards us, and he was going awfully fast for somebody that got hit with a pellet gun.
Ah, see.
Okay. We're looking at timelines because there are no times associated with this.
Right.
So, but he's been truthful so far, so yeah.
Yeah.
But he was running. He ran during the pause. They saw him in the alcove.
Right.
This paragraph here, I want everybody to remember.
Yes.
This is a key paragraph by a truthful security officer, right? So he sees Campos in the alcove. So his Anthony is there. A little bit further on the right is Miguel. Miguel sees Campos in the alcove,
Right.
supposedly. During one of the pauses, in between pauses, somebody who we are assuming is Campos, because
Right.
they forget to black out the last letter. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Blacked out guy. Ran towards us. And he was going awfully fast for somebody who just got hit with a pellet gun. That's a truthful security officer.
Yeah.
That's a truthful security officer who carries a weapon.
Right.
Because it's a little different.
Yeah.
Says, and he comes all the way down here, and we come to check on him. His wound didn't look very severe, so I said, okay, well, it's definitely nothing too big. I like Miguel. And at that point, it was kind of a blur. I noticed Blank, my coworker, right? I noticed Blank, my coworker, Paul, had come up this hallway right here. He's pointing.
Yeah.
The 300 hallway, and he was down here. So we don't know where he's pointing.
Right.
Probably 300, like we were saying, 300 hallway.
Right.
Shortly after that, the first two Metro officers showed up. Shuck says, Annie, he kind of got into the center core, and we kind of got in the center core together, meaning Campos and him. Detective says, so that's what I missed. So when you...
That's what I missed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I like that.
So when the shooting stopped, you turned and started running towards the center core. Shuck says, yes. Detective says, but then the shooting started up again and you took cover again. Shuck says, yes. Oh, detective says, okay, so when you took cover again, you said that Jesus, not blacked out, was now closer to you. Shuck says, I believe so. Detective says, were you guys in the same cubby or were you indifferent? Could you see him from where you were? Shuck says, no. I mean, it's multiple questions there. So Shuck says, no. Detective says, you took cover. Shuck says, I don't. JP says, the second time. Shuck says, I honestly don't remember. My focus was more, kind of had tunnel vision. My focus is more towards the other security guard that came into the hallway. I yelled, and that's why I yelled at him. The detective says, cause you were, and Shuck says, to get down. Detective says, that's right, because they were the armed security guards now coming from the center core. Shuck says, yes.
The dude's answering questions for the person he's interviewing.
JP, the detective says, you're yelling at him. Shuck says, yes. Detective says, you're shouting, stay there. Shuck says, yes. The detective says, so when you run, then from the second time and make it to the center core, Blank, I'm assuming it's Jesus, last letter is S, blacked out, is not with you, correct?
Oh my God.
Says, I believe he is right behind me. I'm not sure. Detective says, so you believe that you and Jesus basically got to the center core about the same time? Shuck says, yes. Detective says, approximately. Shuck says, I may have hit it like a couple seconds before him. I'm not positive. Detective says, and then you turn around and he's there. Shuck says, yes. Detective says, okay, at that point, when you're running.
At that point in time.
When you're running the second time, are you hearing gunshots at that point? Shuck says, yes. So we took cover. He's shooting. I yelled, the security guard, I believe he was shooting when he went to the center core. JP, the detective, says, did it sound louder or was it not as loud? If that question makes sense, this is the detective saying that. Did it sound like the shots were further away the second time, or did it still sound like the shots, from the first time when you heard them barreling down the hallway? Shuck says, yeah, and I don't know if they sounded further away. That's why I can't tell you whether, it was shooting down the hallway again. Detective said, sure. Shuck says, outside, and then we're almost out of the hallway. Detective says, so the distance, and that's, Shuck says, so the distance. Detective says, the distance is just, Shuck says, also muddled. Detective says, it's just ridiculous, right? It's all the way down the hallway. Shuck says, yes. JP, detective, says, it's very long way. Shuck says, yes. Detective says, do you know, because you're in maintenance? Because you're in maintenance. I'm sorry, you're the engineer. Do you know the distance for the hallway by chance?
What the hell?
Shuck says, I don't know the exact number. Detective says, I was just curious if you did. Detective says, because we've been guessing all week since we've been up here.
Bullshit. They got crime scene measurements and everything else. Who is this guy?
Patton.
Is he with Hudson? Are they a team?
They're in the same organization.
Evidently.
So
Evidently.
Yeah, that's interesting. Same organization.
You want answers.
I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth.